I needed a break last summer. My life in the city had become too hectic, so I decided to spend a week in a remote cabin in Appalachia. I packed my camera gear, some food, and a desire for silence. I thought it would be refreshing, but I've never stopped thinking about it. The first night was quiet, or so I thought. I set up everything and felt the chill in the air. It felt good. As darkness settled in, I heard odd noises outside. There were wooden thumps, and maybe laughter. It felt like my mind was playing tricks. I should have gone outside to check, but I didn't. I pulled the blankets tighter, convincing myself it was just wildlife. The next morning, I stepped outside and saw something strange. Tiny footprints leading away from my cabin. They looked like a child's. I stared at them, feeling uneasy. But I shrugged it off. Kids must be playing nearby, I thought. But those strange noises didn't stop. Every night I heard them again. Sometimes it sounded like whispering. I told myself it had to be the wind, even if it sent my heart racing. I figured I'd find peace by exploring. I ventured out to nearby abandoned cabins. They felt eerie, with strange symbols carved into the wooden walls. I felt eyes watching me, but I didn't see anyone. I pressed on, curiosity and dread warring inside me. I found a rusted toy, maybe a doll. It felt unsettling. I took a photo. Every time I turned, I thought I saw shadows slipping between the trees. My instincts screamed for me to leave, but I couldn't move. The woods felt like they were closing in, and I didn't know how to escape. By the fourth day, I was jumpy. I questioned reality. Were those noises real or were they dreams? Had spirits of those who once stayed there come for me? I wanted to leave, but every time I made a plan, something would happen. A branch snapped or I'd hear that distant laughter again. My heart raced. Then came the final night. I wasn't ready. I sat outside, trembling, when I saw a figure standing between the trees. It didn't move. It just stared. I asked if they were okay, but there was no response. My breath caught in my throat, then I heard the whisper, a child's voice saying, "Why did you leave me?" I turned around. The cabin was empty. The woods around me felt heavy. I could feel the weight of many eyes on me. I was frozen. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I could only stare back at the figure. I don't know how long we stood there. The laughter started again, echoing through the trees. Every instinct told me to run, but I couldn't. The cabin didn't feel like a sanctuary anymore. It felt like a trap. What did I really experience that week? I still don't know. All I know is something dark followed me home. The days passed since I returned from Appalachia, but the strange feeling hadn't left me. My apartment felt claustrophobic. I avoided mirrors, half expecting to see that figure lurking behind me. The city seemed louder, the lights harsher. I drowned myself in work, trying to forget those whispers. But they whispered louder. One evening, I found myself going through the photos I had taken in the cabin. I hoped to find comfort in the beauty of nature, but that comfort turned sour as I flipped through the images on my camera. The pictures of the woods felt wrong. Every shadow seemed too dark, too deep. I noticed something peculiar in one photo. A faint outline lingered near the trees just outside the frame of the shot, almost childlike. I stared, my heart racing. I zoomed in and felt my skin crawl. Was it just a trick of light or something more? I was about to dismiss it when I noticed the position of the figure matched where I had seen the child during my last night. I closed my laptop, trying to shake the creeping dread. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind raced, replaying the moments from the cabin. What did that child want from me? I avoided the dark corners of my room as if they might hide the truth. Just then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number popped up. "You can still come back." Panic surged through me. How did they know? I ignored the message and curled up in my blanket, hoping it was just a prank. But sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I found myself drawn back to my camera. I opened the photos again and scrolled through them, unease climbing with each click. Then I noticed something else. Among the photos of abandoned cabins, one had a faint image on the floor. Not a doll or a toy, but a child's handprint embedded in the dust. I recoiled. I didn't remember noticing that before. The next day I decided to visit the local library. I needed to find out more about the cabins and their history. As I entered, a musty smell hit me, mingling with the scent of old books. I approached the librarian, an elderly woman with tired eyes. I asked about the area and if any local folklore involved children. She studied me for a moment, then pulled out a book thick with dust and opened it. "There are stories," she said slowly, "of children who wandered into the woods and never returned." Her voice shook slightly. "Some say they're still looking for their families." The hairs on my neck stood up. Muffled voices echoed in my mind. I leaned forward, eager for more. She continued, "They call them the lost ones. Sometimes they call out to those who enter the woods." I swallowed hard, a knot forming in my stomach. The whispers I had heard were not merely my imagination. I felt something drawing me back into those woods, and I knew then that my time in Appalachia was far from over. That night I received another message. It read, "What's wrong? Don't you want to play?" I squeezed the phone, fear flooding my body. This wasn't a game. An urgent thought surged through me. I had to go back. What awaited me would either free me from this torment or pull me even deeper into darkness. I didn't waste any time. The next morning I packed a small bag. I needed to go back to those woods. Maybe there was something I had missed. Maybe I could confront whatever was haunting me. The whispers felt like a siren's call, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. As I drove, trepidation settled in my stomach like a weight. The winding roads of Appalachia felt both familiar and foreboding. Each turn brought a wave of memories. Picking up my camera, the chill of the night air, the fleeting laughter of the girl who wasn't really there. The cabin loomed ahead, squat and shadowy against the backdrop of towering trees. When I arrived, the air felt thicker. I parked the car and stepped outside. The silence was overwhelming. I shivered despite the warmth of the sun. This was where it all happened. The cabin seemed to breathe in the stillness. I hesitated for a moment, but the urge to unveil the truth pushed me forward. I walked inside, and the familiar smell of damp wood and lingering dust surrounded me. I turned on my phone's flashlight and scanned the rooms, searching for anything out of the ordinary. I felt drawn to the corner where I had seen the child. Maybe I needed to connect with whatever spirit lingered here. As I approached, I noticed something atop the old table that hadn't been there before. It was a small, weathered toy, a wooden car, chipped and scratched. I picked it up, my heart racing. Had someone left this behind, or was it meant for me? Suddenly, the floor creaked underfoot, and I spun around, heart pounding. The shadows in the cabin seemed to shift. I held my breath, listening intently. Was it just the wind, or was there something more? A sound like faint laughter echoed through the cabin. The sound was childlike, innocent yet unsettling. I rushed back to the doorway, gripping the wooden car tightly. Then I noticed movement outside through the cracked window. I squinted to see better, my heart thudding. There, just beyond the threshold, stood a figure. A child, small and pale, barely visible among the trees, the girl I had seen before. "Come play," she called, her voice sweet and inviting, yet laced with an edge of something I couldn't name. I stood frozen. It was as if the trees behind her were alive, encroaching, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. "Who are you?" I shouted, the words raw in my throat. The girl only tilted her head as if she were considering my question. Then she turned and skipped further into the woods, beckoning me to follow. My hands trembled. I wanted to run, but something deep inside urged me on. I stepped outside, following the shrinking figure. The shadows stretched longer, wrapping around me like tendrils. As I entered the trees, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The forest was alive, watching. I called out to her again, thoughts racing. I needed answers. That's when I stopped. Ahead of me lay a clearing I hadn't noticed before. Something was gleaming at its center. I took a cautious step forward, and that's when everything went dark. When the darkness lifted, I found myself not in the clearing, but in a dimly lit place that felt like a dream. A swirling fog wrapped around me, obscuring everything. Panic clawed at my throat. I blinked hard, willing my eyes to adjust. The air was thick with an earthy scent, like freshly turned soil. I heard a soft laugh again, a melody that intertwined with the mist. I turned, trying to pinpoint its source, but the fog seemed alive, shifting and swirling around me. I concentrated, hoping to hear the girl's call once more, but all I picked up was the rustle of leaves. My instincts screamed for me to run, to escape from whatever this was, but my feet were planted in place. Then, faint outlines emerged from the fog. Children, huddled together, their faces obscured. They were whispering, and their eyes glimmered like tiny stars. I felt an undeniable chill creep down my spine, instinctively moving back a step. "Where are you?" I called, forcing the words out, willing myself to sound brave. One of the children turned towards me, and for a moment I thought I recognized her. The girl from the cabin. She stepped forward, and the others shifted aside like leaves parting from the wind. "Come play," she repeated, her voice now more like a song echoing off the trees. The edges of her smile appeared innocent, but I felt something dark lurking beneath it. "No," I shouted, my heart racing faster than ever. "What do you want from me?" The laugh returned, softer this time, tinged with something darker. The forest around me closed in, the trees leaning closer. A feeling of dread washed over me, grounding me as I scanned the area. "I want to go home," I yelled, uncertain of what else to do. For a moment, silence fell among the children. Then the girl stepped closer. "You can't go, not yet. You have to find him," she whispered, her gaze serious now. I felt sweat trickling down my back. "Find who?" I asked, panic seeping into my voice. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept across the clearing, and I saw a glimpse of something metallic flickering in the corner of my eye. I turned to see the gleaming object again, but it was no longer just an amorphous light. It was an old, rusted key, half buried in the soil. "That's it!" the girl shouted, her expression shifting. The other children echoed her, their voices rising into a cacophony. "You must take it. He's waiting." I reached for the key, hand shaking. As soon as my fingers brushed the cold metal, a wave of memories flooded my mind. Images of a man with dark eyes and long hair, his face twisted in pain. A feeling of loss enveloped me. Who was he? Before I could grasp the weight of this revelation, the fog intensified, spiraling around me like a cyclone. The children faded into the mist, their laughter echoing as I clutched the key, desperately anchored to reality. And just like that, everything went dark again. When I opened my eyes this time, I lay in the clearing, with the gnawing sense that I'd just crossed a threshold I couldn't backtrack through. Shadows flicked at the edges of my vision, and as I stumbled to my feet, one thought consumed me. The woods were not done with me yet. The forest felt different now. The feeling of being watched was stronger, the trees standing like sentinels, their gnarled branches reaching out as if trying to keep me in. I gripped the key tightly, cold and rusted, a remnant of something long forgotten. My heart raced with questions. "Who are you waiting for?" I whispered to the empty woods, half expecting a response. But only silence met me. I glanced around. The familiar path back to the cabin now felt alien. The air grew heavier, thick with a sense of foreboding. I took a cautious step forward, the leaves crunching under my feet. My mind raced with the girl's words. "You have to find him." I had to understand who he was, and why I felt the weight of his sadness like it was my own. Just then, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. Something small darting between the trees. My stomach twisted. I hesitated but then followed. The shadow flitted away, leading me deeper into the forest. The underbrush rustled softly as I pushed through, every crackle amplifying my anxiety. Then I saw it. A rundown cabin hidden beneath tangled roots and overgrown vines, far more dilapidated than the one I'd left. The door hung crookedly on its hinges, and the windows were shattered, remnants of what could have been a home. It felt wrong, like an echo of the cabin that had sheltered me, but far darker. "Maybe he's in there," I muttered hesitantly, my voice barely above a whisper. What if this was the man I saw in my vision? What if he held the answer I desperately sought? I approached cautiously, the wood creaking beneath my weight. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I reached out, pushing the door open just enough to slip inside. The air was thick with mildew, and the light streaming through the broken windows cast eerie shadows on the walls. The interior was a mess, remnants of broken furniture and scattered belongings, but something caught my attention. A photo frame on the floor, partially obscured by dust. I knelt to pick it up, and my breath hitched. The faces in the picture mirrored fragments of my own memories. The man with dark eyes, he was in the photo, standing beside a woman holding a child. "Who are you?" I murmured, feeling a strange pull as if they were guiding me further into the mystery. Suddenly, a noise outside made me jump. A low growl reverberated through the air. My heart raced again, fear gripping me. I dropped the photo frame and it shattered, scattering shards across the floor. I scrambled to my feet, expecting something dark to emerge from the shadows. Then I saw it. Through a broken window, the glint of something reflective rushing towards me. I could barely make it out, but it was large. Fear pierced through my mind. I had to leave, but my body felt frozen. And just when I thought I couldn't bear the weight of the dread any longer, everything went black. I awoke once again, this time lying on the forest floor, the scent of damp earth rising around me. I could hear my own ragged breathing and the rustling leaves, but the growl was gone. Whatever was chasing me, the woods had cloaked it in silence. Then I remembered. My hand instinctively clenched the key. There was something I had to do. A connection to the man in the photo. But now, something darker loomed in the shadows, and I could feel the weight of his presence pressing down on me, urging me into the unknown once more. I scrambled to sit up, the forest still and quiet around me. The key felt warm in my palm, as if it were alive. I glanced around, uneasy about being alone. The light was fading, casting long shadows that twisted into shapes I couldn't quite make out. I had to make a choice. I could go back to the cabin I knew or venture deeper into the woods, following whatever path this mysterious key held. Curiosity clawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that it had all led to this moment. Slowly I stood, brushing dirt and leaves from my clothes. I took a breath, steadying myself. The air was cooler now, the weight of twilight settling in. Whatever had watched me before seemed to stir again, just beyond the trees. Then I heard it. Soft footsteps crunching on the underbrush, close enough that my heart leaped in my chest. Panic rose as I pressed my back against a tree, willing myself to remain unseen. Shadows danced on the ground, and I could just make out a figure emerging from the foliage. A girl, no older than I was, with wild dark hair and piercing eyes. I recognized her from my vision. "You're here," she whispered, her voice carrying an edge of urgency that sent chills down my spine. "I didn't know if you'd come back." "Who are you?" I asked, stepping cautiously into the dim light. "What do you want from me?" "I'm trying to help you find him, but time is running out." Her eyes darted nervously around, as if expecting something to spring from the shadows. "The woods don't like intruders. You have to trust me. That key, it's important." Before I could respond, another growl reverberated through the trees, louder and closer than before. The girl flinched and panic grew in my chest. I felt the urgency weave into my veins. "Where do we go?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Follow me. Hurry!" She turned and darted into the trees. I didn't think, I just ran after her, branches whipping against my arms, the forest consumed by a thick silence that felt alive. I could feel something angry trailing us, and I cursed myself for not being more cautious. We reached a clearing, a small pond reflecting the last light of day. The girl skidded to a halt, panting heavily. "We're safe for now," she said, but her voice trembled. "But we don't have much time." The pond was eerily calm, but it drew me in. What had happened here? I glanced at the girl, about to ask her what she knew, but another growl shattered the silence, louder than before. It echoed through the trees, and I felt the earth tremble beneath us. "Look," she shouted, pointing at the water. My eyes widened as I followed her gaze. There, beneath the surface, I saw it, the shape of something dark and shifting, pressing against the water as if trying to escape. I backed away instinctively. "What is that?" I shouted, my voice rising in fear. "I can't explain it all," she said, her own eyes wide with panic. "But you need to use the key. It's the only way to stop it." I hesitated. It felt like the weight of every decision I had made was culminating in this moment. I glanced back at the tree line, where I could sense the darkness lurking. It was either face it or lose everything. As I fumbled with the key, the girl grabbed my wrist tightly. "No more waiting, we have to act now." My heart raced as I moved toward the water. This had to be the answer I was looking for, but what if it led to my end? Then I heard it again. The sound of something breaking through the trees, finally emerging. Fear twisted in my gut, but I couldn't turn back now. That's when I saw it. A figure, tall and shadowy, standing just beyond the clearing. The sadness I felt before returned, flooding my senses. It was him, the man from the photo. But he wasn't alone. Something darker loomed behind him. I raised the key, my breath hitching, knowing everything was about to change. I felt the cold metal of the key digging into my palm as I raised it, my hand trembling. The girl's eyes were wide, pleading. "You have to unlock the truth," she urged, her voice trembling with fear. But the shadows grew closer, the tall figure shifting just enough to keep me on edge. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm as I tried to make sense of the scene before me. The man's sorrowful gaze was locked onto mine, but the darkness that hung behind him was a presence I couldn't ignore. Whatever that thing was, it was hungry and wanted us. I couldn't breathe. "What do I do?" I gasped. "Focus on the pond," the girl shouted, breaking my daze. "Use the key. Trust what you feel." With another growl rippling through the air, I forced my feet to move. I stepped to the edge of the pond, the key now feeling impossibly heavy between my fingers. The water stilled, reflecting not only the twilight sky but a whisper of something far deeper. I could feel the energy pulsing beneath the surface, waiting for me. Then, the ground shuddered again, and the man's expression shifted from sadness to alarm. "You have to hurry," his voice rang out, strained yet familiar. "They're coming!" "There." The girl moved to my side, her presence a small comfort amidst growing dread. I saw the reflection of her face in the water, a face filled with determination. That pushed me forward. I took a deep breath, gripping the key tightly, and approached the pond. As I held the key over the water, it began to glow softly, illuminating intricate symbols I hadn't noticed before. They were similar to the ones etched into the key itself. It felt as though the water was drawing me in, begging me to connect with whatever force pulsed beneath. "Now, unlock it!" she yelled. My heart raced, and I plunged the key into the water just as something massive exploded from the shadows behind the man. The dark figure roared, a sound that pierced through my bones and made my stomach churn. Then everything happened at once. The key clicked into place as if the water was a lock, and a surge of energy shot through me. I could feel the pond responding, bubbles rising and swirling in frenzy. The man's eyes widened in a mix of hope and despair, and the darkness behind him writhed, almost as if it were in pain. An incredible force pulled me downward, my feet barely grazing the surface. I wasn't just unlocking the pond. I was unlocking something within myself. Memories surged, chaotic and chaotic. I saw glimpses of the man, his smile, and moments that felt too real. But the scream of the dark figure snapped me back to reality. I glanced back, panic rising again. "What's happening?" "It's a battle for control," the girl shouted over the chaos. "You can either release him or lose everything." Drained, I fought to hold on to my resolve. My fingers tightened on the key. With it, I was refusing to let the darkness win. Whatever had chained him, I was about to break. Then, just as I prepared myself for what would come next, everything went dark. I blinked. The world around me vanished, and I felt as if I were falling into a void. Nothing remained but the weight of the key in my hand and the haunting echoes of the growl fading into silence. "Where am I?" I whispered, heart pounding. I could hardly hear the girl's response as panic set in. "You have to find the light." But in the darkness, it felt like the world was slipping away. The silence pressed against me, and all I could think was that whatever happened next would change everything. The silence was suffocating. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I strained to hear anything, but all that greeted me was an eerie stillness. It was as if the darkness was alive, wrapping around me, closing in tightly. Focus. The girl's voice cut through the void, her urgency grounding me momentarily. I sensed her presence nearby, but I couldn't reach for her. Remember what you felt. The key. The light. I took a deep breath, desperate to think clearly. My fingers still clutched the key, its cool surface somehow reassuring. Was there really a light? Was it somewhere in this endless dark? I could feel the weight of the key begin to pulse between my fingertips, growing warmer. Suddenly, I felt a faint tug at the edges of my consciousness, a flicker of warmth sparking in the darkness. Without understanding how or why, my instincts kicked in. I concentrated on that pull, allowing it to guide me. As if responding to my thoughts, I began to move forward or perhaps backward. It was hard to tell. "Keep going," the girl shouted again, her voice more distant now. I stumbled, lost in the nothingness, when out of nowhere a shaft of light pierced through the dark. I flinched, shielding my eyes. This light was warm and bright, like a guiding star. It called to me like a lifeline. As I stepped toward the light, something shifted behind me. A low, menacing growl echoed through the void. The darkness began to swirl, pulsating as if alive. I resisted the urge to look back, fearing what I might see, but that dread boiled in my stomach. "Don't stop. You're almost there." The girl's encouragement pushed me forward. I surged towards the light, and as I did, the key in my hand flickered with a brilliant glow, illuminating my path. In that moment, I felt a rush of memories stitched together like fragments of a broken mirror. Faces, places, all started to align, but they were shrouded in confusion. The man's face loomed especially large, his expression both anguished and proud. "Remember, there's more at stake than just you." Those words snapped around my brain like a startling wake-up call. I needed to understand this connection, to unravel the memories that intertwined with the battle before me. Suddenly I stumbled into the bright light, its warmth enveloping me. Everything around me shifted like the lens of a camera coming into focus. I blinked against the brightness, colors exploding back into life as the void released its hold on me. When my vision cleared, I found myself standing at the edge of a luminous pond, the water now glimmering like stars scattered across the surface. The girl was beside me, her expression fierce. "It worked!" she exclaimed, but her voice faded as I looked around. The shadows were still there, lurking beyond the edges of the light, but something felt different now. I held the key, and it thrummed with energy. Then, from the depths of the pond, a dark figure began to rise, emerging from the water as if called by the brightness. My heart raced anew. "What is that?" The girl turned to me, panic flashing in her eyes. "We need to confront it. It's part of him." "No," I said, fear creeping in. Before I could finish, the water erupted. The darkness lunged out, its form twisting and writhing. "Get ready!" she shouted, and I felt the weight of the decision. A choice lurked in the air. Just then I noticed something on the shore, partially submerged in the mud. It glistened in the light. Another object, another key. That's when I saw it. My breath caught as the dark figure loomed closer, eager for a fight, while my fingers danced over the second key waiting to be discovered. I lunged for the second key, instinct kicking in as my fingers wrapped around its smooth surface. The darkness hesitated for a moment, as if sensing my newfound resolve. I could feel its eyes, if it had eyes, fixating on me, a heavy weight of malice. "Are you ready?" the girl asked, her voice trembling slightly. She was worried, and that made me more aware of the danger. I nodded, adrenaline coursing through me. As I held both keys, they warmed against my palms, almost vibrating in unison. I was scared, but there was a flicker of something else, maybe hope. The dark figure froze, its form shifting like smoke, swirling in a tangible dance of rage and confusion. "You don't belong here," it snarled, a voice that felt like ice scraping my mind. "You shouldn't have come. You can't undo what's been done." The girl stepped closer. "We'll see about that." Her determination pushed me to stand tall. The light around us flickered, but I held tighter to the keys. Somehow, they felt like fragments of a truth I hadn't yet uncovered. "What do we do with them?" I asked, desperation creeping back. She shot me a fierce look. "Together, we need to unlock what he's trapped." The space around us buzzed with raw energy. I could see shapes forming in the darkness beyond the pond, faces rising from the shadows, all twisted with anguish and fury. They were trapped too. I could feel their despair, a chorus of haunting voices echoing in my mind. "Focus!" the girl urged, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Think of what you want to break free." I forced myself to remember. Images of the man and his pain swirled in my thoughts. The proud look on his face, the depth of his sacrifice melded with my memories. As I locked eyes with the shadows, lightning coursed through me. I raised the first key, the one I had found first, and gripped it tightly. In an instant, a surge of warmth enveloped me. I felt the boundaries of light shift, revealing a pathway of energy connecting me to the figure in the water. The dark presence recoiled, a hiss escaping its lips. "No! You can't break this bond." "I won't let you keep him," I shouted, willing myself to finish what I'd started. The words echoed in the air, ringing with authority. With resolve, I raised the second key, poised and ready. The girl mirrored my actions, her eyes fierce as she summoned every ounce of courage. Together, we thrust the keys toward the dark figure with everything we had. The moment we made contact, a blinding flash erupted, filling the void. I was thrown backward, colliding with the ground. The light enveloped me completely, constricting and suffocating, but somehow still protective. When the brightness faded, I lay on the shore, gasping for breath. The pond glittered again, but the figure was gone. I glanced down, realizing both keys lay beside me, darkened but intact. The girl rushed to my side, her face full of relief. Did it work? I nodded slowly, trying to process the surge of emotions flooding in. But even as I confirmed it, a deep unease settled in my chest. "I think we may have opened something." I looked around. The shadows that had once seemed merely menacing now lingered with a morbid curiosity, a ripple of fear igniting the air around us. Something still lurked, and I couldn't shake the dread that more challenges awaited. As I stood there, uncertainty pulsing through me like the keys still clutched in my hand, the air around us seemed to shimmer and transform. The whispers I had come to know too well returned, a cacophony of frantic voices that filled the space, embedding themselves into my mind. "Why did you leave?" A child's voice reverberated through the clearing, sending chills down my spine. It was her. Once again, the little girl beckoning from the trees, her face cast in shadows. "You were supposed to find him. He's still lost." "No," I yelled, instinctively taking a step back. "I thought we set him free." My heart raced as dread washed over me. I could still feel the weight of the darkness lingering, watching, waiting for a chance to pounce. But the girl from the shadows simply shook her head, her eyes wide with sadness. "You released part of him, but not all. The darkness can't be trusted. It holds what you need to find true peace." The other children emerged slowly from the shadows, their faces twisted with uncertainty and longing. Each of them looked just as lost as I felt, trapped between two worlds. The shadows could no longer conceal their pain, their cries blending into a haunting symphony. "What do you mean?" I pressed, desperate for answers. The girl stepped closer, her small frame trembling. "You must understand. He wanted to protect us. His love became a chain. Only when you face him will you truly free everyone." My pulse thundered in my ears as I contemplated her words. What did that mean? What would confronting him entail? I had come to the woods with an intention to find closure, yet I felt every decision I made leading me deeper into the very heart of the unbearable unknown. "Do I have to go back?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The shadows flickered, almost impatient, as if swaying with the response. "You must," the girl urged. "There's a sacrifice that needs to happen. The key will guide you." Each pulse in my chest felt heavier than the last. I glanced at the keys, glinting ominously at my side. This was supposed to be a resolute ending, a release. Why did it feel anything but? "No!" I shouted, exasperated. "A release shouldn't come at a price. Why is this happening to me? What do I have to sacrifice?" I felt energy shift around me, like shadows tightening to contain my despair. "You must choose," the girl said firmly. "Find him, confront him, and face the truth. Only you hold the way." Before I could respond, layers of darkness detached and began distorting into shape. A figure against the backdrop, illuminated and imposing. He emerged swiftly, the man from my visions. His face wore a mask of despair, yet something solemn and proud flickered in his eyes. "You came," he said, voice deep and tinged with regret. "But do you truly understand?" "No," I cried. "You have to listen. The other children, they're lost, and you—" "I know," he interrupted, sorrow rippling in his voice. "I could not save them, not the way you have, but the price of doing so means facing the choices I made, the memories that bind us. Are you willing to confront those truths?" Tears blurred my vision. I didn't want to be part of this. I just wanted to find peace. "Peace comes through understanding," he murmured, stepping forward, the shadows behind him swirling ferociously. "It is woven into our connections. It is painful, but it is real." Deep within, I felt a pang of recognition, the memory of loss, of sorrow. They were woven through my own pain, through a bond that felt unbreakable yet impossible to navigate. I inhaled sharply, grappling with the turbulence of emotions flooding my heart. Then, something flickered within the depths of my mind. Memories of the man that were drawn not just from photographs, but from visceral moments of my own uncertainty, of choices I had made that led me to this moment. The burden of those I couldn't save reverberated around me, blurring the lines between my reality and those of the eternal. "I can't lose anyone else," I finally replied, voice trembling. "Not ever again." A silent understanding passed between us. His expression was almost fragile, as if he were balancing on the precipice of what could be. "Then you must choose," he repeated, the shadows swirling closer, forming dark tendrils that narrowed our scope of safety. "I give you this chance to confront our bond." As I took a step forward, fire ignited in my chest. The key pulsed like a heartbeat, urging me toward the unknown. "Do it!" the girl screamed from the shadows, and suddenly all the children echoed her. "Save him! Save us all!" In that moment, determination overtook fear. "I will confront this darkness, our darkness. I won't let it hold us," I cried, raising both keys high. The darkness recoiled, but my heart surged with purpose. The world spun, and the clearing erupted into colors. Vivid, life-affirming light collided with shadows. This was our moment of reckoning, the crescendo of pain and possibility. With every ounce of force in my body, I plunged the keys into the earth, where shadows coiled tight around the roots of the land. Unraveling echoes of grief and loss washed over us, clearing the air. I felt the threads of our lives intertwining, binding, slowly pulling against the weight of the darkness. As the memories surged, the light poured forth, illuminating each face of the children, each moment of their joy and sadness. I could only whisper, "You are not forgotten. We will remember." And just like that, the shadows screamed. Whether in agony or in release, I couldn't tell. But liberation surged through me in that moment. I glanced around, feeling the enveloping warmth, almost cradled by the understanding. Suddenly, a silence enveloped us, wrapping the forest with a sense of calm. All that remained were the glittering keys buried into the earth, a testament that some doors had been closed while others were yet to be unlocked. I looked to the man, relief breaking through his sorrow, a smile ghosting his lips as the darkness began to dissipate. "Thank you," he whispered. "You are the light we needed." But even then, shadows still loomed at the edges of my mind. I felt as though I had uncovered only a fraction of the truth. What would linger on the other side of this moment? I couldn't suppress the unease twisting in my gut, knowing that our journey wasn't complete. As the clearing began to fade from view, I held tightly to my new understanding, whispering a promise. I'll remember. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The challenge had only transformed, deeper questions still lingering in the depths of the woods, echoing softly like a whisper in the dark.